Good. All right. So this presentation session is energy efficiency and radon. And really we have time for discussion at the end of this as well. Quite a bit of time actually for this after your presentation. So Anne-Marie, we'll let you take it away.
Okay, thank you very much for having us speak on this topic. And this is a presentation that will be done firstly by me and then followed up by Noah. And then we'll be opening it up. So I really want to hear people's perspectives on this. And again, we are here representing the BC Lung Foundation and Simon Fraser University. So radon and energy efficiency towards healthy indoor environments. So at the BC Lung Foundation, we've been working on this project on radon and energy efficiency. We have 4 outcomes. The first one is the energy efficiency making the connection, which I'm going to talk about today. And I'm a bit tardy getting the PDF link up, so that'll be there soon. Also, energy efficiency recognizing legal liabilities, which Noah will speak to all these 3 today. Gaps in the system, and then where we think there's action moving forward. So I'm going to start with my piece, which is the connection between energy efficiency and radon. You know, what is going on in this space? And so there's been anecdotal reports over the last 30 years about the influence of energy efficiency retrofits and what their impacts are on indoor air quality in general, and then about radon. So I went back and did a deep dive through all the papers that have been written on this topic. And there's a lot. There's about 1,100 if you type in these keywords. But one of the main points is like organizing and sorting things. And these are across public health literature as well as mostly building science. And so when I decided to do this particular piece, I looked for empirical, so only studies that measured radon gas actually. I wanted to see the impact of renovations on existing homes. So we're not talking about new homes, and I will speak a little bit about that right at the end. And then I excluded what we know as specialty homes. So I didn't look particularly at passive houses, although there is a growing body of literature on radon and passive houses. So why do people do energy retrofits? Well, it's probably kind of obvious because it helps the consumer save costs. That's one thing, but it also helps countries meet climate requirements. It also helps us save resources and prevent the construction of new dams, at least theoretically. So we're all doing our part to make our homes more energy efficient. We're now eligible for grants, and Noah's going to talk a bit more about that in order to make our homes more energy efficient and save money. And so there's lots of different strategies. Some of them are shown here: sealing of windows, reducing energy loss through adding insulation, double glazed windows, and then upgrading lights and appliances to be more energy efficient or to use less fossil fuels. So as I noted in the beginning, this is an old body of research. So 1981 is the first publication that I found on radon concentrations and infiltration rates in energy efficient houses. And this research is interesting, but what we considered energy efficient in the 80s, which was coming after the sort of the oil crisis of the late 70s, what we see as energy efficient at that point in time really isn't what we're talking about now. And in the 1990s, so research kind of stopped in the 80s, it came back in the 90s. This article down below, also done in the United States, and interestingly measured for 3 months. They're starting to see a real clear signal between air tightness and higher radon levels. But many of these studies were quite small and very regional. So they didn't span across different states where there'd be different underlying radon concentrations. From about 2000 onward, people started to use modeling such as the Contam software, where they could look at different building configurations. So there's some of these authors that I've listed here are sort of the leaders in this work, often in Europe, where they're looking at what happens if we change this parameter in a building or we change the radon level in the ground. What can we expect to see going forward if we start tightening homes up? These models also interestingly look at other variables, including atmospheric pressure. Wind speed is at the moment of real interest, and the influences of things like exhaust fans. So sorry, I've gone back. And they really pose that mechanical ventilation is going to be part of the solution going forward for energy efficiency. So then what about the measurement studies? So a really great review was done by Dr. Fisk from the United States, published in 2020, but it included homes only up to 2019. And this review was done in a very comprehensive way, not just for radon, but other indoor air contaminants, including mold, VOCs, formaldehyde, etc., and thermal comfort. And what they found was that of all the indoor air contaminants, radon is the most impacted by energy retrofits. And it's also where the evidence is the clearest, that tightening homes increases radon levels. So since that study was published or review, there's been actually a lot more that's come out since then. So that really only did to the beginning of 2019. And then there's been at least 15 studies that have come out in the last year and a half, 2 years, that have added additional evidence. So I'm just going to quickly summarize these here. So two big studies from Switzerland showed that retrofitted homes, both old homes and relatively newer homes built within the last 10 odd years, we're seeing a doubling in both the mean and median of radon levels. Those are statistically significant after retrofits happen. And that the impact of retrofits are greater in areas where they know that the radon levels are higher. So Switzerland's done a very good job of mapping where radon levels are. And so the impact of retrofits, again, is greater in higher radon regions. The UK has tried a few different approaches. They have large databases of homes and energy efficiency because people have to apply for grants. So they're in this database. They also have a lot of information on radon levels. So what they found when they tease out, they go back in there and they say, do we have a radon level? Have you had an energy efficiency retrofit? They put that data together. And what they found interestingly, and they tried to tease out what's causing this, double glazed windows had the most impact of anything on a retrofit, the most impact on the radon level. And then the more that people added to that, ceiling, insulation of walls and attics, the higher the radon level was. And again, these are measurement studies that were done in the UK. And then they found Dereshchev in 2021 put forward an idea that also is being taken up by other European researchers, is that in these retrofitted homes, we're seeing some important nuances, which is that the measurement variability between rooms is much greater in a retrofitted home than it is in a naturally ventilated or slightly leakier home. So the radon distribution may change, and this might have implications. I know we talked about, does it matter what room we measure in before, but maybe in a more energy efficient home, it might. And this is a lot of the other research is also suggesting that things like wind and wind speed and even heating and cooling may also have additional impacts when the envelope is just that much tighter. So I'm going to give a special shout out here, though, to the United States. So the United States Weatherization Assistance Program, otherwise known as the WAP, has been over the last 30 years helping often low-income families improve the energy costs or decrease energy costs and improve thermal comfort in homes. So it's targeted to low-income housing. It's subsidized by the Department of Energy. It reduces the average cost about 283 American dollars, which can be considerable for some folks. It also supports a lot of local employment, and it helps support building trade industries in the US. So over the last 20 years, there's been a growing awareness that what they're doing might not be the best for indoor air quality. And in 2018, a comprehensive review was done. Some research was done on 514 homes. It's really nicely designed study. It controlled for before radon levels before retrofit, after retrofit, and then they used controlled homes in the similar region to say, well, maybe there's just radon variability going on in this region. Unfortunately, they only measured for 7 days. But what they did see was a small but statistically significant impact on radon levels after weatherization. And they also saw this issue that the more radon in the ground in the area, the higher the region, the bigger the effect actually was. And I'd like to point out that a lot of these things that is done in this system are very simple. These are not complex, huge heat recovery things that are put into people's homes. They're sealing, changing out windows, and fixing appliances to be outdoor ventilated. So the the government realized they're now funding this program that is decreasing air quality for low-income and vulnerable families. So what are they going to do? They decide to make some precautionary changes so that they can test to see whether or not they can tweak the WAP program so that it doesn't cause so much radon ingress. They added mechanical ventilation. These are simple things again. Added plastic covers on dirt floors, covering the sump pumps, and then drawing air from outside for heat and hot water. And this was studied and recently published in 2020. So this is a government document. They did find that these interventions could reduce, or not reduce the radon level, but at least it didn't change, but only on the first floor. So houses with basements still had increased levels, and that's of concern if there's people living in basement suites. So now they're suggesting that basements have ventilation added. Okay, because I know that Noah has lots to say. I'm going to sum up the literature summary right now, but it's very clear that energy retrofits can increase radon levels. The tighter a home is, the more radon is likely to be inside. Some of the real limitations of this body of evidence, though, is that a lot of the research has really been done on small houses that are targeted towards low-income families with simple designs. So whether or not we can extrapolate this to new fancy homes is unclear. Also, multi-unit residential buildings, very, very paucity of data in that realm. What about new homes? I get asked this all the time. What about new energy efficient homes? Canadian research done by Dr. Gazarzi's team does show that at least in Canada, we are seeing elevated levels in new homes. There's mixed European results. It's definitely changes by country and code. So Sweden and Switzerland are seeing decreases in their new energy efficient housing, but Eastern Europe is not, and neither is the UK. So my summary point is, to meet Canada's near-term climate targets, we are going to have to retrofit our existing homes. This is going to increase radon levels if it's not done carefully. And waiting for new houses and new building codes to solve Canada's radon problem is not a practical solution. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Noah.
Okay, thanks, Anne-Marie. So I'm going to take a shot at screen sharing and hope it gets me where I want to go. How am I doing?
It looks like the presentation. There we go.
Okay, so I'll talk about legal liabilities. I'll talk about gaps in Canada's energy efficiency system. And that's mirroring the documents we have up on the website. In the gaps, our piece, we do mention US guidance and some high-level statements in European radon action plans. And then we'll look at solutions going forward. So it's really a fundamental principle of negligence law that you're not allowed to harm your neighbor. So, and that has taken the form of a specialty area of negligent construction. And the classic cases of Winnipeg Condo from the Supreme Court of Canada. So this is common law from the courts. This is common law that's shared across the provinces and territories in the judicial systems. If you design and construct a building, you have a duty of care to ensure the building does not contain defects that pose foreseeable and substantial danger to the health and safety of the occupants. And that principle applies to architects and engineers and contractors. And there's cases which show it applies to people who do renovation work. Now, one of the important principles, so let's just think about this for a second. If you're a contractor and you make a building airtight and you raise radon levels, you are increasing people's risk of getting lung cancer. Now, if those people proceed to get lung cancer, they can go back and sue you for giving them lung cancer. Okay, so we have a liability issue. We don't actually have to wait until people get lung cancer, because one of the principles of common law, construction law in Canada is that it doesn't have to be physical harm, that a person can sue for damages for repairing the building to get it back into a safe place. Okay. Now, as part of negligence law, there's also developed the notion of special warnings in a range of situations. So there's a lot of cases around products liability. It's a very established area of law, again, in the common law shared between provinces and territories. There's a classic case of breast implants. If you have a product and it has a propensity to cause injury, it can still be on the market because it's an important product and it's doing good things for people. But if it's creating these risks, you have to tell people about the risks. And the courts will look at whether the manufacturer knew or should have known of the risks. Manufacturers, you're on alert. The research is out there. You should be knowing now. Has a reasonable warning been given? And did the lack of warning contribute to the damage? Well, if the general public doesn't know that energy efficiency improvements cause radon, and you do know, or you ought to have known because you're supposed to be up on the science of your products, you've got a problem. We know about warnings in a range of situations like slip and fall. So I took a picture up of a classic slip and fall, and that's why you have those signs up, because you know, if you work at a grocery store and there's a slippery floor and someone falls, you can get sued. And, you know, most people have insurance over occupiers' liability. Professionals who give advice, such as doctors and lawyers, have to, you know, when they're giving advice, have to make sure they give warnings if they're putting people into a risky situation. And we also have warnings for products in regulations under the Canada Consumer Product Safety Act and the Food and Drug Act. And there's a huge list. So if you go to the legislation with the associated regulations, you get a huge list of different products for which there are specific regulations written which talk about the warnings. Okay, so this is pretty established in law. Now, in some cases, we actually have informed consent where the client has to sign off. Now, this is an important part of the duties of doctors. So if a doctor is going to do a procedure, people have to sign off. They have to be told about the risks and sign they know the risks. And that piece of paper protects the doctor and shows that they gave the warning. It's also standard in university research settings involving humans. So whenever I've had to do research involving humans, and I've done some actually for this research, I've got to get a consent form and got people to sign it. And the basic principle is that when people have a right to decide whether to accept significant health risks, and they have a right to know what risks are involved and to make meaningful decisions based on a full understanding of those risks. The WAP program in the US requires consent forms, and they actually have special consent forms for radon, so that contractors need to give these to clients. And that's, they don't say we're doing this to cover our asses because of legal liabilities, but I think it's pretty clear that's why it's happening. So let's look at some gaps in the Canadian system. So if you just go to BC Hydro's Power Smart program, they like to give out to low and moderate income people various, you know, things to help them improve their heating costs, including weather stripping. Okay, well, Anne-Marie's just told us that weather stripping in reducing drafts might stop natural ventilation and increase radon levels. So I searched their guide and they don't mention radon. Actually, this is not surprising because actually there is a systematic inattention to this problem across all energy efficiency grants and programs, not all, but most. And we know of some that's been discussed. People talk about Manitoba Hydro having a program, and in the Yukon, they actually include radon in Victoriaville. But when we look at the major efficiency programs, there is no real attention to radon in the grant and subsidy programs. Now, Canada Greener Homes is sort of the new one announced by the federal Trudeau government. There is no grant or subsidy coverage for ventilation or heat recovery ventilators. So they don't even want to fund ventilation, and nothing about radon. CMHC Green Home. Okay, so this one's a bit complicated, mostly no, but they happen to reference LEED standards for high-rise buildings as one of the indicators of allowing coverage, and LEED actually has some radon provisions in it. Energy affordability program of the Ontario Independent System Operator, no. Enbridge home winterization, no. Clean BC Better Homes and Home Renovation Rebate Program, no. Clean BC's Income Qualified Program does actually talk about air quality issues and realizes that there may be needs for associated health and safety and ventilation upgrades, but not radon. They don't cover radon. Okay. So what's going on here? I think what's going on, it's pretty clear, is that when people think about energy efficiency, they think about energy and they don't think about health, and they see these things as parallel or silos, and they're not understanding that there's an internal connection. We're going to see this as well when we look at green building standards. Now, actually, not a ton of people are using these standards compared to the total building stock, but it's worth going through them. What we see is quite a few standards, which I've called holistic standards, do think about health and well-being along with energy efficiency. And those tend to include radon. Now, in this evaluation we didn't evaluate sort of how strict the requirements are. So some just going to give you a point system. Some just say, you should pay attention to radon. They're not going to decertify a home if they haven't dealt with radon. Some are sort of checklists, but we just, is radon mentioned or taken somewhat seriously? I think the Living Building Challenge just missed out. It hasn't been updated, but generally Built Green Canada, LEED, Well Building Standard, Green Globes, BOMA have some kind of reference of radon. But when we get to the energy focused standards, not so much. And again, it's because, I really do think we're in a climate emergency, but I don't think a climate emergency justifies not paying attention to health and safety. So what happens with homeowners? So generally what happens is someone will contract for an energy efficiency upgrade. And what happens is homeowners decide to take it on, and they actually become their own contractor. So they'll first hire an energy advisor, and they might be encouraged to do so by the Canada Greener Homes or a provincial level grant program. The advisor will tell them what needs to be done as an upgrade, and then they have to then hire out different people to do the work. There are some companies which will give you the whole package, but often people are just phoning up a window installer or a heat pump installer. Okay. Now, what that means is there isn't really professional oversight of the whole retrofit process. Maybe the advisors are the most conscientious because they're thinking of the whole house and modeling the whole house. But we know from Stats Canada, there's very low levels of knowledge of radon in the general public. But there's also interesting research which shows that homeowners, when they access energy efficiency programs, at least in the past, haven't taken a whole system or whole health approach, which would really allow an integrated system, not only which would drive efficiency to low levels, not a 25% reduction, but like a 50 or 75% reduction that we really need to address the climate emergency, but also not even putting in the mechanical ventilation. So Hoek and Parker from 2018 reviewed 19,000 residential energy evaluations in the Waterloo area over a say 15-year period. And they found that heat recovery ventilators weren't put in, that people were trying to do upgrades on the cheap and not thinking about ventilation. Now, ventilation is a way of helping the radon situation. We know from all our mitigators, all the materials on radon, that it's not sufficient, but at least it's something. But even that wasn't being put in. So what that suggests is that homeowners it's a sort of chaotic and uncontrolled process to some degrees. And homeowners are not always that conscientious about the bigger picture of health and safety or even comprehensive retrofits. So we interviewed energy advisors. Now, here I switch from a sort of lawyer's hat to a human geographer hat, and we did in-depth qualitative interviews with a select number of advisors and talked to them about how the system works and what's going on. So what did we find? Natural resources. So the energy advisors are a kind of gatekeeper because, well, one, they're certified by Natural Resource Canada. So there's some sort of oversight that we can look to and see if someone could make some changes. But also almost any grant or subsidy program requires someone to go to an NRCan certified energy advisor to start the ball rolling. Now, we learned that they use a software called Hot 2000, and a lot of their programming and how they advise people is programmed through the Hot 2000 software. We found that there is guidance on radon from NRCan in a document called Keeping It In. And if you look at that, it just says radon's a problem. It doesn't actually tell you about lung cancer. It certainly doesn't tell you that energy efficiency upgrades could be made worse sorry, that energy efficiency upgrades could make radon worse. So it's very vague language, and it's kind of hidden somewhere on a website. So are advisors talking to their clients about radon? Are they communicating that there is a risk? Are they making sure that their clients are making informed decisions about upgrades? No. Most advisors did not know where to find information from NRCan on radon. They did not know that the HOT 2000 printouts on a renovation upgrade report include a warning about radon. They didn't even know that, because a lot of them are actually just filling in the data on their computers and letting the reports get automatically generated. So they don't actually know that there's an information warning at the end. And they when we asked them, what is radon? Most of them didn't know. Now, we actually had probably, our sample size was skewed towards people with prior knowledge of radon. We had 5 out of 14 had some kind of training. But even once we took that group out, very, very poor knowledge of the issue, and almost no discussion with clients about radon. No formalized process for radon to be discussed. So that gives us the impression that clients are not getting the word on radon. Now, we go to the United States. The Environmental Protection Agency has a robust set of guidelines for indoor air quality for renovations, directed at the energy efficiency industry. There's one in 2014, and there's an update in 2021. It has descriptions of what to do about a whole host of indoor environmental issues and indoor air quality, with a serious recommendations on renovation, and it has clear sections on radon. If you're in the American context and you're an energy efficiency worker or in the industry, you have clear guidance. And so there's guidance to educate clients about radon testing and mitigation, to give clients a copy of EPA radon materials. And they talk about precautionary measures. And Anne-Marie mentioned this in the WAP program. Covering earth floors, sealing foundation, adding mechanical ventilation. Now, in the American context, they like short-term tests. So they give one option where you can test before the retrofit and then after the retrofit, and know quite precisely whether or not your retrofit is increased radon levels, following the myth that short-term tests work. But they have an alternate option whereby you simply test after, and if radon levels are higher, or certainly if they're over the EPA guideline, the energy efficiency people are instructed to mitigate. It's part of their job. It is inherent to the energy efficiency process that radon is dealt with. And this guidance is in the National Renewable Energy Lab standard work specifications, and versions of it are incorporated into the WAP programming with some limitations. So, solutions in Canada. Energy advisors and contractors need education and training on indoor air quality and radon. There needs to be clear messaging and energy efficiency guides from NRCan and from other groups on indoor air quality and radon. Advisors and contractors need to give clear messages to their clients on the importance of radon. And we think that should include delivering test kits and delivering guides that describe it. I think there's a very good case. I can't say the law exactly demands it, but I think there's a very good case. I mean, I think a judge might. It's a bit gray, but I think there's a clear case to be had for informed consent by advisors and by contractors. And we have this problem of in Canada, the retrofit process is disorganized. If there was one person overseeing it, I'd say it's not, informed consent isn't good enough. They should be mitigating. But if someone's just putting in windows, they don't know who else is working on it. It's on the homeowner. So at least I think they should do conformed consent to try and protect themselves. And we've got to be having renovation contractors realizing that they have a legal duty to not do harm and take precautionary measures. And if post-work radon testing shows elevated levels, to fix radon as part of the package. We need all of our grant programs to be extending efficiency grants and subsidies for the retrofit process to cover testing and mitigation. And I think we need product warnings on goods that tighten buildings. I think energy efficient doors and windows should come with warnings about radon. And that's something we could talk to. I don't know if someone on can tell me how to get a hold of the people at Health Canada who do consumer product safety. That's a new program we could start. So we have our project outputs on our website at bclung.ca, radon and energy efficiency. And I just want to give a little plug. We've been working on radon and renters, and we've got new guides up. We actually just got those up yesterday. That's some other work we're doing. I've worked with Pam a little bit on the checklist for radon testing. I just want to make a little plug for another project we're on, just because I have people's attention. And I'll thank you and take questions.
That's great. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie and Noah. Really great work and important work. I know it's taken a lot of work to bring it to this point, but really important. All right, we've got some questions, so I will throw these out to you. First one, for liability about radon, won't the owner burden to demonstrate the building didn't have a radon issue before the retrofit was done by a professional?
That's for me. I mean, there's contributory negligence, and there's a likelihood that the post retrofit radon levels were increased. So there's a prima facie case. It's possible that if it went to court, some doubt could be faced on causation, but given a situation where the best you know is that the radon levels are higher, and you have evidence that retrofits in general make radon higher, there's like enough of a case that if I was a risk-averse contractor, I would want to make sure I wasn't put into that position, that I would make sure that no one could attribute to me having made the situation worse.
Okay, good. Yeah, Anne-Marie, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, there's some chat going on. And yeah. I think like one of my big struggles, and part of why I embarked on this research in particular, is that I continually am told that we're going to building code our way out of this problem. And that when people look at retrospectively how radon levels have changed over time, right, a lot of that includes renovated homes, so older homes that have been renovated too. And so we've got murky data at best. And as the chat, there's lots going on in the chat about HRVs and are they the solution, but also people pointing out that, you know, HRVs require maintenance and knowledge, homeowner knowledge about what they even are and maintenance to keep them going. And so we're putting so many eggs in this one basket. And as far as I'm concerned, that basket has big holes in it, right? So we're not really building radon out. And on my mind, we're actually making the problem worse. And, you know, whatever, so our huge push towards energy efficiency, we really need to bring our radon community alongside and kind of put it right in front of these folks and say, look, like you're not helping us. Like, I'm sure there's a dual solution here somewhere, and I'm going to leave it to the Collins and the other people in the chat to chime in about this. But yeah, it's leaky condos. Someone mentioned that all over again, right? Like, here we go again. Causing indoor air quality problems with an earnest effort to try and fix another problem, unintended consequences. So, okay, I will stop because I can rant about this for a while.
Yeah, I think, Anne-Marie, I agree with you. If you're using an HRV or an ERV as your primary mitigation solution, you need to have a maintenance contract with an HVAC contractor on that, because too many homeowners, I think you made a point in your neighborhood, your neighbors don't even know what that thing hanging in their basement is, right? It's
no, I have no, and you know, DIY weatherization, like you can go get some spray foam and some tape up your windows. You'll have no idea that, and a lot of the radon research in the United States was telling because they did it across different states, and some of them were in low or moderate radon regions. And what it did is it bumped people up above 4 picocuries. Yeah. And so people who aren't necessarily thinking about radon now have created a problem because they've shut their house down or tightened it up. So that's why I believe we need consumer level awareness of these initiatives, because otherwise people are unwittingly So Jean's point about would people have tested before? Maybe not. You might even not think that there's radon in your region until you tightened your house up yourself. So we need to be educating all the people along the way about this.
Sure. Noah, question from Casey. A municipality was successfully sued over leaky condo for negligence by a strata. Could the same happen with radon, do you think?
Yeah, I have a report on it. I wrote it a while ago on construction law. Yeah, it probably, if their inspectors didn't see faults in building code application. So that would depend on what the building code is operative in that municipality or in the province.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're doing a research project on the BC building code, and we're finding that the code itself is pretty well followed. But that doesn't really solve the radon problem. It's possible that an inspector could be part of a multi-party case for high radon. There's a real obstacle to suing on radon systems because they don't cost very much. It's going to cost you more to talk to a lawyer, let alone carry a case, than to just call up a mitigator. So it's only going to be a rare case of a lot of people dying of lung cancer, and we just haven't seen them, where it's traced back to an inspector or bad construction.
Just jumping back to your point, Anne-Marie, about HRVs. I mean, I think maybe I'm living in a unique area because we've had HRVs in our building code for quite a while. So I would say that there's quite a bit of knowledge about HRVs in Manitoba, but I don't think anybody knows exactly like how to maintain them. And I think many would chime in to say that. So it's a broadly, like, there's just this positive, oh, an HRV, yes, that's like a positive thing. Like, it's a wonderful thing, but really no knowledge about maintenance. And they're complicated in the maintenance, where the reverse, radon mitigation, still not great awareness on it. But yet it's such a simple system to maintain and effective. And, you know, so there's sort of some other aspects to it, even if people do know about HRVs. Just jumping in, warning labels seems like a popular topic. Yeah, really good concept.
I'd like to connect the aisles in Home Depot. I'd like the people in the energy efficiency aisle to say, hey, you considering this? Can you go over to that other aisle where we have the radon detectors and a little pamphlet that says, please look at cars, like one of those QR codes or something where it's like, did you know your product can contribute to poor indoor air quality? We don't want to scare people off from energy retrofitting. Like, just to be clear, we need to do this to meet near-term climate objectives at this point in time. But we, again, need to be sending the right people to the right places. Sorry, there's a lot, the chat is pinging away. I'm trying to I'm going along.
Yeah.
I don't know if people think about the idea of putting warning labels on double glazed windows. Can you see that happening?
Well, I can see it easily happening if the Consumer Product Safety Act regulations include energy efficiency products. I mean, in law, it's just more if socially people think we're ready for it, or if there'd be wide acceptance. But most people don't get too upset over warning labels, and there are on baby carriages and many other things.
And purses in California that contain PVC. Actually, there's a point here that Chantal has brought up, which I think is an important one, which is we saw, right, that people who are doing energy advice and their radon people, like, this conflict of interest is kind of an issue. Like, I can energy retrofit your house, and then all of a sudden now I'm telling you I'm going to do a radon renovation too on top of it. And so, you know, that's a real problem. And can we have the same people offering the same service, or do we need some sort of professional streaming of these or do we blend the two services together? And I think that I'm going to put it back to C-NRPP or other, you know, professional bodies to say, how do we handle this where someone comes to fix it and then turns around and says, well, I'm the only other person in this small town that can do radon. So yeah, that could be perceived as a conflict of interest.
But
Well,
I think Noah raised the point in his presentation. It's just like a warning label. When you go in to do an energy retrofit, you say, I just need to make you aware that the byproduct of this retrofit could be elevated radon levels. And while your house has low to moderate levels now, by the time we tighten it up, it's entirely possible it's going to have higher levels and require this extra remedial step. Like if the cards are on the table up front.
It's exactly that. And to answer Anne-Marie's question, we put in a solution. I put in a solution in our solutions moving forward. I addressed precisely that issue. And I said, if NRCan takes it out of the discretion of the advisor, where the advisor is simply told that they have to say this, then it takes the response, then people can't say that the advisor is only saying it to sell their radon business. It removes the conflict and it just becomes a prepared script, which everyone's instructed to do, and it's standardized across the industry.
At the very least, retrofitting should require post-retrofit radon tests. Sorry, Pam. I mean, that seems to be the clearest no-brainer here, that we just, after anyone retrofits, they have to test. Simple.
Yeah, I mean, really put a $30 detector in the package, the consulting package or the renovation package.
Yep, Chantel put that into the chat.
Yeah, and we have tried to, and this is sort of I wanted to make sure we talked a little bit about funding programs as well. So we have been reaching out to grant programs. We've been attempting to make a connection with the Greener Homes grant. I know Jean put in a comment that he's reached out to the minister. We have reached out to the minister, like you guys have reached out to the minister. We've reached out to their communication lines. I've gotten responses from the communication lines, but they just look like they're a copy and paste response to me. Right. So I'm not actually engaging with them. They're not responding. And in fact, Kelly, I'm going to put you on the spot. I know you tried when we got some canned response to engage as well. And, I don't know if Kelly had any better response from them than I got. To connect with their director general as well. So, I mean, we certainly are making a ton of effort to make the attempt, but what we have had success with are the Greener Home grant, the Better Homes grant in Ottawa. So we had a really great meeting with the group in Ottawa that are running the loan program there, and really excellent take up. Noah and Anne-Marie, do you want to talk about that interaction?
Noah, do you want to go ahead?
I gave them a presentation pretty similar to this one. This one is a bit more refined, and they said they were open to it, but I haven't heard back from them.
No, what was striking is that public health came along. For me, that was the big win, was that we talked to the people doing the energy grants. We also talked to public health so they could hear. Because again, a lot of the problem with radon, and Kelly can acknowledge this, is that it's federally recommendations, and then provinces are doing nothing. And part of the reason the provinces are doing nothing is because they believe that someone over there in the building code is going to fix this problem. And I think the more we can engage public health with this particular body of evidence saying, look, we're not just going to magically fix this through 70-year building code changes. And I think, as Aaron Gazarzi pointed out, what's in the code right now doesn't actually reduce radon. It just makes it easier to fix. So we don't have the solution in another ministry over there. Public health needs to bring it back. So that, I think, was my biggest takeaway from that message, was that presentation that we did, we got enough people in the room to help push the agenda a bit farther with public health folks in Ottawa, which was great. So likely to do with Kelly, to be honest. I think, Kelly, you probably did that. So thank you, but we need more of that.
Yeah. So one thing I'll say is that the common law across Canada is pretty much the same on this. And so my legal opinion really does extend across the country. We wrote this to be nationwide by just using a sample of building standards. It would have been a lot of work to cover every single grant program across the country. So we just used a sample. But I think that there is a real legal issue here, which is that renovators are killing people. We seem to have that evidence. And grant programs are hard to sue, but they are morally responsible for leading to death. And that should hit home and be a motivator for action and change.
Yeah, pretty strong, Noah. But
Well
right.
put, Noah.
Yeah. Kelly's joined us. So Kelly, you had do you want to comment on some of the interactions that you've had?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to share sort of the discussions that we're having. And so we have been reaching out to senior management at National Resource, NRCan. Is it NRCan? Yeah, it's Natural Resources Canada, who's the lead along with CMHC about the inclusion of radon in the grant programs. And we provided research and evidence with regards to the connection between energy efficiency and increased levels of radon in homes. There is from the response from senior management is there's an understanding, they see a link, they understand the importance of addressing radon. And so as a first step, they've included some information. So similar to what Noah pointed out, that it's similar to the work that we've also done with I'm trying to remember the name of the program where you said it's included in
Better Home.
No, just the standard. I spoke to all the partners in the, totally blanking on the name of it. It's that Energy Star program.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that they've included information, but then you get to those layers where the individual advisors, who vary and change over time, right, to a certain extent, don't always know about it. I will say that we were able to write a letter to all of the certified partners under that program to invite them to learn more about radon, to invite them and encourage them to consider sharing information, handing out information, or even test kits. So there's still more work to be done, because obviously in the research that you've done, Noah, that you found that still a lot of them didn't know about radon, which sort of aligns with some of the the other experiences that we have in going out and talking to all sorts of public and different industries. But as it relates to the grant programs, it's challenging, and we're continuing the conversation. The program had already been established. It was established with very, very stringent and clear objectives set up, specifically focused on reducing energy use, right? And so the challenge was the conflict of not being able to show that addressing radon addresses the main objective of the program, which is reducing energy use, because they have that goal, those goals to hit by, I want to say 2030 and 2050, or 2035 and 2050. That being said, they left the door open to say, reach out to us after the first year as we continue to revise and update the program. So we have just recently started that process of following up again. But there's conflicting to a certain extent. I know that in theory and ethically they should not be conflicting, but in reality and the urgency around climate change and the need to reduce energy use and meet some of these goals that we have doesn't necessarily align with radon. But that being said, the health risk is a real issue, and what you said, Noah, is very true. And that is the message that we are bringing to the table, that yes, it's important that we address climate change, but you also need to be thinking about the health impacts that are being created as a result of, and it's not just radon, right? There's other indoor air quality issues that, so we're not alone in our environmental health programs or in our air quality programs that we work with that in raising some of these issues. And when I say we, I mean, the National Radon Program and the work that we're doing and going to our colleagues in other departments.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some real difficulties for people to meet climate targets. Certain toys and luxuries are going to be hard to achieve. We have an opportunity here to make our lives better through climate action. We have an opportunity to improve health through climate action. And I think it's crazy not to take it.
Yeah, and I'm just watching a little bit of the chat. that was one of the things, and Pam and I had a bit of an exchange on this, but as I'm sure you can imagine, Pam is juggling a million things. But we did have a bit of an exchange, and I think you had said there may be some aspects of radon reduction that can be sort of positioned as green or as helping to reduce footprint. And so I think because we're talking about it now, and I just saw Anne-Marie and Brooks, I think, having an exchange about that. If you can share any of that research or any information that you have on that with us, that's something that we can bring forward with as part of the discussions that we're having at a more senior level between departments.
So Kelly, there's two issues that we can talk about. So one is how much electricity is a radon system using? And I think we have an example from Grace Zhu's work in Prince George, that you can build passive systems. If you do a vertical pipe up and it's insulated space and you have an HRV, then you get a very good and very energy efficient response to radon, for which a fan is unlikely to be needed. And if it is, it's going to be a 20-watt fan. And 20-watt fans shouldn't be too much of a problem, especially if your electricity system is itself greening and becoming renewable.
And now, no, we've got fans with EC motors. So some of them are down to, Todd Boss, if you're on, jump in, but I believe we can get them dialed back to as little as 2 or 3 watts.
Are those available commercially?
Yeah.
Variable speed.
Oh, okay. Okay. But then I guess the second issue is one of trying to get energy efficiency and radon dealt with by subsuming radon interventions into what's already in prescribed energy efficiency improvements. And this is what the WAP program calls precautionary measures, which is sealing and ventilation systems. Now, that's precisely what WAP is trying to do, is to say, we're not actually putting extra money into a radon system, but we're calling existing energy efficiency improvements part of addressing radon. And the problem you get into there is that you're not really solving the radon problem, because we know those systems don't reliably get people under guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
And
No,
so
agreed.
I think I'd be much more comfortable saying we should be addressing climate change and health simultaneously.
Well, one of the things, that is resonating loudly with me, I mean, you've done this research with double pane windows, and all our higher end energy efficient builders for the last 2 or 3 years have been using triple pane windows. So it's got to be even worse.
Yeah, these are rudimentary projects. And again, it's because often the evidence is done for low income or government subsidized housing, where the government has a responsibility, or, there's something called fuel poverty or fuel scarcity, where people just can't afford to heat them. So thermal comfort is a real driver for folks. And what's really missing is what happens in a normal suburb.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know. And that's why I think we need and in Canada's unique, right? We have both hot summers and cold winters. Yeah. So lots of ceiling in the house. I think that we need another government agency to come in and help us. The evidence from around the world is pretty clear. People often say, oh, well, maybe it doesn't happen here, right? So I think we need some research that's done here to just say, look, that proof of concept is reality. This is what's happening. And these are some of the places that we could be working together to help solve the problem.
Dan Willette put in that there is an air quality component in the energy efficiency programs that could include radon. And in fact, Noah, I think you and I had a discussion about this, that there is, we've kind of looked at some of the wordings and said, oh yeah, there is definitely room in here for radon, but it's getting the programs to listen and pay attention. And the Ottawa group were very responsive. So we do expect to get, and I did reach out to them again and ask for kind of a response or an update on where things were going. But they were very responsive, not only for their own program, that they were thinking the radon would fit nicely into their loans, but they had a network of other programs similar to theirs. So we are expecting them to kind of help us advocate within their peer group, so to speak. So yeah.
There are definitely programs like Saskatchewan Home Renovation Tax Credit, in the Yukon, Manitoba Hydro. It's not hard to fit in, and there are more broad-minded programs.
Mhm. I think, Noah, you also made a really good point that, like, as we talk about this and are concerned about tightening energy efficiency and increasing radon, we need to kind of come at it with a solution of impact, attitude that, we do want to work together towards energy efficiency. It's not like we're saying stop doing this because we want to do that. Yeah. There's ways to do this and to make things better and to make things healthier too.
Yeah.
You don't solve problems through denial. And so we've had radon denial for 20 years. And the last thing we need is energy efficiency motivated radon denial.
No, and I want to be clear, there's no denial. There's an understanding that and so there's a comfort in including radon information in the health sort of protection type of language and warnings that they have in the program. But where we need to get to is having radon reduction included in the grant or funding components of the program, right?
I think Kelly, we need much better information from NRCan in their guides and by the advisors, and we need some marching orders for energy advisors to discuss indoor air quality and radon better than they are. And maybe that's going to be an easier sell.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm playing devil's advocate. I feel like they're going to say that's outside of their area of knowledge and expertise, and there's another department that leads that, and that information is already well developed and available, right? So they're going to just, because it's all one website, right? Canada.ca. At the end of the day,
passing. I can book pass to that.
Yeah, it's not buck passing, but as much as I absolutely agree, radon's not the only issue. So where do we stop saying that an energy advisor has to be able to be an expert in A, B, C, D? I'm just thinking on the spot. I'm not wearing just my radon hat. Like, I think we need to make it, that's an ideal, absolutely, but I think we need to make it simple. Like, I do like what the US is doing. I think a requirement to leave behind information about radon, and where they can find a test kit. I think ideally leaving a test kit behind. And I know actually the energy advisors and the work that we did through Scout, and even in the engagement that I did through the Energy Star program, there was interest because there's a business opportunity there, right, too. But they have to be willing to spend the money to leave those test kits behind. So, yeah. So I think we're getting there with energy efficiency. And I think we need, and I saw what you said, Jen. I agree. I will say at the National Radon Program, we know, and our senior management knows that we need to get radon included in some of these relevant programs. We're just working on how to make that happen. It's not, yes, we're part of a big federal family, but there's different mandates and different priorities. So it's finding the right way to make them pay attention to what we want them to pay attention to and fit it in.
I think we're here to help.
Yeah, and that's why I say I'm glad to hear you. It needs to be coming from outside sources, because they'll say they haven't heard anything about it. It's not an issue, whatever it might be, right? And they haven't said that, but if they're getting it from different angles as well, I think there's value in that.
Pam, I'm conscious of our time here, and I know this is an amazing conversation, so I've been biting my tongue, and you're the next speaker, so.
Well, the next session is our roundup. So, I mean, other than to present this information, which we've been talking about, the fact that we've been reaching out to grants and talking with them about including radon mitigation into their grant programs. And Adam's presentation did a really good job of presenting that Wednesday. The days are running together. But we do, we are continuing to reach out to these grant programs to see if they would consider radon. And really the Ottawa group was a big success in the fact that they just saw it as a, no problem. It should definitely fit in. And so it's just waiting to see if they're going to roll it out and see what they do. Oh, I see I made an error. I need to change that, the Saskatchewan grant program. But there are programs that we are seeing added in. So we do at least have precedents that we're seeing, like Noah said. We're starting to see engagement as well with some of the smaller programs. So some of the bigger programs are hard to connect with, but some of the smaller programs we're starting to see some engagement with. So that's been really positive.
I like what Colin did there too. I don't know if you saw that in the chat, but breaking out the pieces that, see, again, that's the type of information that we need, that we can go to, because that is, that would fit, right, with reducing energy. And again, sorry, if you haven't seen it in the chat, he said he broke out the cost of sealing the slab, and that would probably qualify for funding.
Yeah, exactly. So he just put a separate line item into his invoice so that the homeowner could then go and apply. There are a few hoops though. So I believe they do, and we'll bring Colin into this discussion in a few minutes so he can maybe explain a little bit more of what he did. In fact, the next session is our roundup. So I'll bring Colin and Jeff in a second here. But yeah, I mean, we continue to work on these grant programs, and we have reached out to everyone that we know about across the country in the last 6 months as we've been going. So we've been collecting information and sending emails. And so I've created the summary of which programs we've got and put it onto our Take Action website, the ones that have acknowledged that it is included. So we'll continue to do that and continue to update that information. All right, so I don't know if you guys want to stick around for a roundup. You're welcome to. We must have lost Anne-Marie.
No, I'm still here. I thought you were,
I
I thought you were presenting, sorry. No.
Oh, no. I just wanted to again remind people of that list of the mitigation grants that we've got so far. And
Is Colin's going to join us? Because I think this point about the business savviness of it is super important.
yeah, actually, and that's the other point I think that we wanted to make about energy efficiency programs, that it is another way that our professionals should be marketing their testing. So they can also be proactive in reaching out to homeowners and saying, hey, have you done an energy retrofit? Maybe you should test, and you can use that language in your marketing. Good. All right, Colin, do you want to explain the process?
Yeah. So yeah, I think right away this tells us that we've kind of come full circle, right? We've been saying that radon mitigation is building science, and here we are, we're finding other building science issues related to energy efficiency, and then we have a role to play in
Colin,
helping.
just a second, you're rubbing your mic somehow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There, better if I don't move? I'm a
That's better.
fidgeter. Thanks for that.
I know.
Yeah. So I was just saying that radon mitigation is building science. That's at least the way I'm always trying to position it. And here we've come full circle. We found a building science potential solution for energy efficiency and radon. It's amazing how it's all connected, right? It's all kind of coming together. So it's amazing. And yeah, so I had a customer who was applying for that Greener Homes grant, if it's still called that. And that's where there's grants for windows and doors and air tightness and heat pumps and all that kind of stuff. And he said, hey, can you break out the cost of the sealing of the slab because there's a grant for air tightness? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? So I broke it out and I went and looked online, and I think I sent you the link too, Pam, we could bring it up. And yeah, there's a whole section on air tightness. And guess what? The envelope consists of even the slab, and there's air leakage through these perimeter slab joints that we are correcting as we do our sealing as part of our regular business for radon systems. So we are stopping outside unconditioned polluted air from coming into the building, and that should be it should be something that should qualify for air tightness grant. There's some things though. I mean, there's a blower door test that goes along with it. I'm not clear if what we seal will show up on the results of the blower door, and if that will affect or impact the amount of grant that they could get. But likely you're not going to do the energy audit in order to just do air sealing on the slab. This is probably the least interesting thing. So probably you've already got a bunch of windows and doors and insulation, other things you're doing. So I think hopefully the blower door test should reveal overall an air tightening of the building. And we have then sealed the building in one of the two best places to reduce the infiltration of radon. One, of course, being the slab. We're going to seal off all the entry points, which is impossible, but we're going to make an attempt. And two, again, I was saying in the comments, we need to look up. We need to also seal the ceiling plane, which is always overlooked. And if you only seal the walls and the windows and the doors, the top of your chimney is still left wide open, we'll get an increased stack effect on the ground, and we could increase radon into the building. So that's my second shout out. We need to look up, and we need to seal the ceiling, because no one else is doing that. And that actually might help. I see you've got the thing on the screen now. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Not a huge grant, $550, but.
Well, it could be up to 1,000.
Oh, okay, if you achieve better than 0.8 times your target value. Yeah, but their target value is going to be based upon overall air exchange rates in the building. And we probably won't have that much of an impact on those unless other things like doors and windows make up for that extra difference. And then, yeah, for sure. But what we're doing isn't going to give us 20% better than our target air change reduction overall in the house, no.
And just to kind of further, there is a process that the homeowners need to go through in order to qualify for any of that grant, right? Colin, did you check with your homeowner and do you know that process?
Are you referring to the retrofit energy audit that has to be done? Yeah.
Yeah. So just to warn people that you can't just go and seal it up and go, here you go, you can apply for this $500.
Yeah, that's why I think this is going to be used for people who are already in the process of obtaining grants under this program. So it's just another reason to do it, but you're right, it's not going to be a standalone reason. The amount of money they're going to get won't cover, the costs of getting it. That's right, not standalone.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And Jeff, thanks for joining us too in our roundup. You're on mute, Jeff.
Sorry for that. Yeah, that was a hot topic right there. That was excellent. Great presentation. Thanks, guys, and a lot of great discussion in the chat. I'm trying to keep up, but it's just going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked down at one point. There's 50 more messages.
Oh, I know. It was clearly we could have a half-day conference on that. Never mind the presentation.
Yeah.
I think we need to go to other conferences though. So, sorry,
Yeah.
Jeff, go ahead.
And I own a window renovation company, so it's very interesting too. So we're going to start giving out radon test kits to every time we sell a window package. I think, why not?
What kind of company don't you own, Jeff? I mean, you've got home inspection, you got window company, you got a radon company. I don't even know what all you've got. Are you mayor?
Well,
Mayor.
my wife won't let me do anything else, Colin. I'm done. Tapped out.
Mayor is the next chapter.
Yeah, sure.
And
Sure.
hockey player. And, yeah.
No, too old for that.
Yeah, so Chantel has chimed in on this. So the process to qualify for the Greener grant is they first must have a pre-retrofit energy assessment before they can apply and do any work. And that's really when this objective report is sort of provided to them with those objectives that they're trying to meet. And so they need that report before they do the air sealing. So, I mean, it's something to inquire about, I suppose, too. If you notice a house is going to need quite a bit of work and you're going to have to, put so much into your bill, you may want to ask them if they're already considering this program and they can follow those steps as well.
Yeah, and I think it sends the right message. It shows that what we're doing is worthy enough to obtain grants from the federal government. So even if we don't get a lot of uptake, and no one's going to be doing this just for the air tightening, it does show it's serious. What we're doing improves energy efficiency to some extent. And I think it's just saying the right message overall. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, so moving back before, and any other highlights from the day, Colin and Jeff, that you guys want to pull out? You haven't chimed in on yet?
Yeah, you know what? My highlight actually isn't related to the many highlights from the conference, yes, but the one I have to put a shout out for is where the photos are kept. Now, right away, day one, I put a photo in the community section under, sharing your memories or something like that. And I put a photo of Bill and Anne-Marie in there in Switzerland. And there's no other photos. I'm like, wow, that's funny. I'm the only person to post a photo. And then in the chats, everyone's talking about these photos. I'm like, well, there's only one photo. I went online, looked for where photos lived, and this is for the 3 people in this conference who don't know where the photos are, like me. You go to the home page, you scroll down to, what does it say, additional resources or something, and then there's a photo button there. You can press that. Now there's last time I looked, 258 photos. So I may be the third last person to know where these photos are living, but it's definitely worth it to go and check it out. There's a lot of cool stuff in there.
Well, I'm glad you found them, Colin. That's great, because they're great for sure. There's a whole, I'm sure there's been a whole bunch more posted today that I haven't seen yet, but I'll look at them tonight.
I would like to just suggest, like, in the whole collegiality of what we need to do next, is that we need to be presenting, we present radon to each other and we speak to each other, but we need to be presenting our results at the places that the other people are. These energy efficiency, it is Earth Day today, and there's lots of people talking about climate and climate resiliency and building back better. And our radon people, we need to be there. So I'm making a commitment to get Noah and mine's work as much as possible out. Not that I don't love our radon family, but we need to be speaking more laterally. And so if other people, like I know Alan has great contacts in the building science world. If other people are building science people, please, David, let us know, because we'll go and take this chat with us and we'll go open up some cans of worms for other folks.
Well, it's great. It's a great point. And Noah and I have been direct messaging for the last 10 minutes. I've already got a guy in mind, and we're going to set up a meeting in May with him and do a presentation to him for sure. One of the premier building scientists in Canada.
That's great. And Jose, if we can come to ERA 2020 in Bergen in the fall, then this would be great to talk over, because Europe seems to have some solutions that maybe we can bring back to Canada, or next year for our next conference. Maybe we can have some people from Sweden and Switzerland come and talk and share their expertise on how these newer homes are avoiding some of the problems that many people are talking about here.
Yeah, that's a great point, because Sweden seems to be doing, for whatever reason, a better job than us. And I would argue that we've got similar climates. So,
right, but different building construction.
Yeah.
So I think that's also something to keep in mind.
Right,
and
for
you
sure.
pulled that out, that it's a little bit more complicated than we're just not meeting.
Yeah. One of the, I really liked Dr. Chen's presentation. I thought that was interesting too. Like that, we talk about workplaces a lot, but the research seems to be that still at the end of the day, that our exposure is coming from, our residences, and especially more so during COVID the last 2.5 years.
Good.
Yeah, it was last night, but we may as well talk about that. The mixology thing, that was a lot of fun. The Fantech networking event, had some good fun at that last night, and there was a crew that stayed on, and maybe one or two of us that stayed up a little later than others on our own Zoom, but.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. It's super great that there was good connection there. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a lot of talk. Hey, miss you guys. I want we'd like to be in the same room for sure. So looking forward to the next year's chatter. Wow, there's been a bunch of votes for the East Coast on the.
I saw that
the conference as well, right? So I can help out with that.
Be careful what you ask for.
I think we're all busy trying to read the chat.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. I haven't even been in the community, the homepage community board yet today, and I'm just shuddering. I'll be able to spend hours tonight catching up on that.
And there's a lot of discussion about CMHC and where are they and should they be part of this? And yeah, it was my understanding they got out of the radon business in 2007 because their publications haven't seemed to be updated, but maybe that's a place to go, Kelly. It's a federal organization. Maybe this evidence would be enough to get them at least sharing amongst home builders and the home building community.
Say again. I was just, I'll tell you now, Pam, I was sending an email to the Take Action on Radon team saying we should probably meet sooner rather than later to talk about plans, because you get inspired and lots of ideas and you don't want to lose them. And Aaron, so I'll still hit send, but okay. Which conference? Sorry, Anne-Marie.
No, sorry, it's just the Canadian Housing and Mortgage Corporation. But
CMHC,
lots of people are saying, where are they? Or they have resources here, and it's like,
we work with them very closely. More so, I mean, we worked with them very closely at the beginning, and then they sort of went back to their roots of mortgages. And I would say in the last 5 years or so, there's been more collaboration. And so they're very much supportive of radon outreach and engagement and willing to share our information. As far as like, so I'm happy to go to them. So they've been very supportive and actually brought up the issue of including radon into the grant programs themselves. But again, the challenge was, as I explained it, so they were very much aligned with our thinking that way. But the question I have is how, like, what would you like to see CMHC doing that they're not doing?
I'm just reflecting what's in the chat, because lots of people were saying CMHC has a bunch of resources on other things. They used to have resources on radon with HRVs. I'm not that familiar because I've kind of not used their resources because it's not, I haven't found them super useful, but I think Rob Mahoney just noted that CMHC is out of the business of indoor air quality. So
yes, they are. So it's not just radon, but it's everything indoor air quality. So the original radon reduction guide for Canadians that we revamped was a CMHC document. So we sort of took over the rights of it to develop it and stuff. I don't know if and when they will get back into that game, because there's other departments that have a more specific mandate related to indoor air quality.
Right. And part of it yesterday, Mike Keto brought it up, like in the US, you've got, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and HUD who are, in many cases demanding radon tests before they'll land. And I think that the resurgence of that in the US is kind of causing a lot of our Canadian mitigators to look at CMHC and say, why aren't they doing that as well?
Yeah, so if you can articulate a little more specifically what you'd like to see, where you think they have a role to play, I'm happy to take it to them and have that discussion with them.
Actually, Julie put a good point. I mean, it's looking at what their mandate is, right? And trying to speak their language.
Yeah.
And so Julie suggested getting it put into the financing checklist, right? Because that's their mandate, is financing new homes or helping people finance new homes. And so,
yeah. And so, I've gone to them and asked them to go through their policy documents, and they have done that. And there are some of their financing programs where radon reduction could fit for lower income vulnerable population situations. And I have the wording in my email that I've shared. Typically, it has to be in combination with some other changes. That it wouldn't be radon mitigation standalone. So there are some areas where radon fits now, but they don't have it sort of separated out on its own in any of their programs or documentation. I'm not familiar with the financial list that was. I'm trying to find that message that she.
Julie Jarrett too.
The financial checklist. Yeah. Again, I'd have to look at it to see. It may be a challenge depending on what items fall into that, getting radon included on it as a standalone, right? Similar to the public health standards. Like we were successful in doing that in Ontario, or encouraging them to do that, but it will take time. But I'm happy, like I said, if there's a list of things, I'm happy to bring them to CMHC, and we have these mechanisms to bring federal, and we do want to have a federal radon action plan. And we have and we've been talking about how to bring all the different departments to the table to have a discussion about what role they can play. So I like some of these ideas. I need to carve out the time to more clearly define. We have a draft sort of plan for that. And a lot of the departments are starting to take actions. It's just not at the level that I think is desired here. But I think we could be pushing that envelope more too, for sure. And Jillian just asked about an update for the Canada Labor Code. and the gazetting of the changes to Part 9 of the Canada Labour Code that includes the radon guideline level, so reducing it finally from 800 to 200. And we did follow up a couple weeks ago, and they're supposed to be gazetting it in the fall.
Great.
And the delays are COVID and the fact that Part 9 is huge. And I think it's been translation delays and other priorities delays. So yeah, we're as frustrated as everyone else is with the time it's taking, but I am confident it's going to happen.
Good.
And
Yeah, and to
almost
that
confident.
note, they have moved forward on asking for more detailed information. So we have seen progress. We continually talk about these delays. So people are thinking, oh, this is just another one. No,
there's
I
no
think we're
resistance
close.
to it. Yeah, it's not that they're resistant to making the change. It's I think a resource issue, a time issue, and a changing priorities issue with the work that they do, because the Canada Labour Code as a whole is huge, right?
Yeah.
Jean has said, sadly, not a lot is going on in New Brunswick, it sounds like. And so he's happy to hear about all the other initiatives. So that kind of makes me sad.
Well, there actually has been some good stuff, going on. We've seen some engagement, a little bit more engagement from New Brunswick. I know Roshini can maybe speak to that too. But
yeah, I know there's some work that's going on to set up some agreements and some projects going forward too that Roshini is working on. Probably a little early to talk about that just yet. And certainly I know there's research going on. We've been with some First Nations communities out there and stuff that we've been engaged in on stuff. So, but yeah, certainly with New Brunswick Lung sort of shifting with other priorities, there was a decrease in outreach activity in New Brunswick.
Well, maybe we can help with that. I would like to give a shout out to the First Nations Health Authority. They didn't join us this year, but they've been very proactive in BC, testing homes. And I think David McVia was alluding to that earlier. But we're also going to be testing this fall in the Eastern Fraser Valley, and they've agreed to come along and provide test kits for that too. So it's fantastic to see. And that's what happens when you have actual health authority devoted to the health of First Nations people, is that you have the capacity for people to come alongside too. So it's good.
Yeah, we have seen quite a bit. And I know Health Canada, Phoebe has been interacting quite a bit with some First Nations in Ontario as well. And in New Brunswick, we've had some engagement with our First Nations community there. So yeah, there is lots going on across the country in our First Nations, which has been, one of the areas that we've been really trying to engage with. So it's been nice to see.
For our next conference, I'd like to see if we can bring people together again. We did that a few years ago to kind of share expertise and stories in FN, Métis, and Inuit communities if we can, because I think there's lots of growth area for knowledge, especially stuff in the north. So it would be great.
Yeah.
If we're talking CARS 2023.
Next year, you want to get together?
Next year.
That's a good note. I know there's been some chat about where we're going, and there's no contracts or anything signed, but we are working. I will just put out, we are working to get things organized. No hints, Jose. We're not going to tell you where. We know you're going to come anyway, because you love Canada so much. So, but we'll make sure that we give you a place that you want to come to, and maybe even something new. I don't think you've been. I think there's a few places in Canada you haven't been yet, Jose. So yeah, for all of you, we want to encourage you. We appreciate your engagement in this virtual conference, and it's been fabulous. So thank you so much to all the presenters, all the participants, all the sponsors and the exhibitors. And so thank you so much for all the participation. And really, the benefit of the virtual conference is that we can just easily span, although there's a little challenge with our time zones, but we can really span cross country. And so we do have a cross country representation here today, including the North. So thank you so much for all the participants. And we want to encourage you to all come when we meet together. And so we are working hard to get an announcement out soon. So watch for that maybe in the next couple of weeks. And we'll try and get on that early.
I'm going to Arst, or hopefully going to Arst. So if other people are going, you're going to go, we're going to drive down, convoy.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
Where is it this year?
Bellevue, Washington.
Bellevue, Washington.
Oh, okay. Not
can
far for you
drive,
guys, right?
I don't even think we can fly there if we want to, Anne Marie. We have to drive or
It would
take
take
the ferry.
longer. It
We
would
could
take
take the
longer to
ferry.
fly there.
Yeah.
We could take a small seaplane to Seattle, but then we'd have long cab rides. So no, I
Yeah.
think we should just drive. So maybe we can caravan down from Western
Right,
provinces.
for sure. And I just want to say thanks again to Pam and Aaron and the team at Karst. I mean, none of this would be possible without you guys. So, we're give you a virtual round of applause here for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Aaron. Aaron's been doing a ton of work behind the scenes as we've been like quickly changing plans here and there or changing technology. So thank you so much, Aaron. And an excellent French conference. I mean, we couldn't do that without you, Aaron. I really appreciate the fact that we are able to engage with our French language participants and members, and really, I hope they feel valued, because we really have tried to do as much as we can.
Yeah, that's another advantage of the online conference, actually, is just being able to dovetail them the way we have these last couple of years. So it's been a real pleasure.
And for the international guests who weren't able to stay, I mean, it was so impressive to have folks from the WHO and other come to our humble Canadian conference, right? Like, wow. So thanks for you guys for managing to attract that level of expertise. That was really, and the climate change one was really fascinating. Like, wow, look what you can do with radon.
Yeah, fabulous.
And we have to give a big shout out to Anne Marie again as well, of course, for all her hard work. Awesome. And Pam, we should put up the schedule for tomorrow.
Yes, thank you.
Not over yet. It's not over.
Not over yet. No,
that's
exactly. It's not over. And so the courses tomorrow are really, they are going to be fabulous. And they really are geared for our professionals. They're education courses for our professionals, but all of you will find, whatever your area of expertise is and however you engage with radon, you will find value from them, the practical learning. So we have a whole day of French courses that Marcel has got lined up, and a whole day of Colin. And so it's going to be engaging. They both are always thinking of new areas and new angles. And so, and as Colin admitted, he can't sit still. So he's super engaging even on a screen.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. But we're going to do a mitigator roundtable tomorrow. So, even if you're not a mitigator, you're in measurement, you're in policy, you're in government, whatever, come to the mitigator roundtable, because we're going to field any question anybody has, and we're going to group think it, and we're going to settle it right then and there. So I think you're going to find something for everybody at the mitigator roundtable, even if you're not specifically mitigating. Please come down to that one. And we got a special guest star from the United States, all the way from the United States through the telephone lines, I guess. We're going to have Doug Clatter is going to be with us tomorrow. So he's always a pleasure to have.
We made sure the border on the lines was open.
Yep, the border lines is all vaccinated, ready to go, and he'll be there.
Yeah, good. And then, yes, the presentations we have, I believe we posted, or at least I will, once we finish up here, finish posting the ones that I've received, and recordings. I've been processing the recordings on the side. So if you see me looking sideways, it's because I'm quickly saving something, but we're getting the recordings up as well. So you can watch for those over the next few days. Yeah, and so we will, you can access the CE courses tomorrow through Whova. We'll put the links in there for each of the courses, and we'll also send out an email. So we want to have these courses engaging. We want you to be able to interact. So you can do that through Whova, or you can also do that through Zoom. We'll give you the links directly to jump in through Zoom.
Perfect.
Yes, and for the t-shirts,
Awesome.
yes, thanks.
Thanks for the lady size shirts, guys. I don't have to wear another pajama shirt, so I can actually wear it out now. So thank you.
There you go. Advertise the radon. I've been wearing mine to the gym to try it when I get to the gym.
Yeah.
Trying to advertise radon. All right, good. Well, I think that ends us for the day.
Yeah, we're just about perfectly on time, aren't we? Yeah.
Nice work. Yeah.
Always a good goal. Good. Yes. Good night. And
All right. Well, thanks again to everybody, and see you tomorrow, Colin and your gang. At some point, I'm going to be on a flight early, but I'm going to join at least one of the sessions from an airport.
I'll I'm going to take in Marcel's and Collins because I'm bilingual. I'm doing both.
Yeah, there you go.
Right on.
One
Thank you
course
very
in
much.
each year. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
right.
This was
Cheers,
fantastic.
guys.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.